Yeah.
I've
Hi.
not been on Zoom in ages.
Is it different? If I mean, I prefer
There's
the
a
chat,
little AI companion button. I imagine that's just like Fathom, is it?
probably. Your
Yeah.
father was here before you were in my meeting
Oh yeah, there she is. She's so
room.
bogus that sometimes she shows up and sometimes she's just not here. It's like having a real assistant. It's probably how they are.
Yeah. She's like, sorry, I can't come today.
Yeah, no, too busy today. Sorry about
You've had
that.
too many meetings and I simply cannot.
Yes. Okay, I'm ready for this. I'm excited.
Wonderful. So, thank you everybody for joining us that is here. I think we might have a few more. Well, I know Chloe is very excited to join. And there are a couple of people that can't come, but I'll record it and send it to them. So, Emma, would you like to introduce yourself? Would you like me to introduce you?
You can introduce me.
I think you should introduce yourself.
You're not meant to give that option. You should
Yeah,
say
sorry. I don't know why I.
so excited. Okay, well, I'm Emma. I'm very excited to be here, and I am probably for the interest of this specific group of people. Um, I study sports science at uni, and I love exercise physiology. And as much as I'm not actually a triathlete, nor have I done a triathlon, I love the physiology behind that stuff, and that's why I'm here, I think.
Yeah, you are also Emma's being modest there. She's also a bit of a genius in the fat loss world and knows an awful lot about just everything to do with exercise. Which is why I asked you to come and chat,
I am a bit of a geek, yeah. Yeah.
which is important.
Yeah.
So, question-wise, we have a list of questions. So, should we go through those ones first? Unless Sally, do you have any burning questions? Adam, I realise you're cooking and doing baby stuff, so.
Oh,
No, hello, Emma and Kate.
hi.
And Adam. No, I haven't got any burning questions. I'm just interested to hear what you've got to talk about.
All right.
Wonderful. Should we go through the first ones that we have?
Yeah.
You got any particular favourites that I forwarded to you?
Um, I don't think so.
Okay, so let's start with
Maybe not the shift work one, because I actually thought you might be better to cover that.
yeah.
'Cause you have worked shifts and I don't work shifts.
Okay, that's fine. So, best way to manage losing body fat whilst training and fueling for endurance.
Yeah, this is really hard and actually something I've had little experience with. So I remember the first diet I ever did, I was still competitively rowing at the same time. So one, I had to make weight for the boat, but I actually found that was quite easy because I'm so short that I wasn't far off making weight anyway. Um, but then I was like, oh, do you know what? I remember saying to my housemate at the time, I was like, I'm gonna get like the big thing then was getting a sponsorship deal from a supplement company. I was like, I'm gonna get in shape and I'm gonna do a photo shoot and I'm gonna get a sponsorship deal. And he was like, you're never gonna do that. And I was like, watch me. Anyway, so I started dieting, but I was still trying to perform at a high level. And I have to say that was it is significantly harder, which as a coach I quite enjoy because there's so many more considerations. And when you're working with someone who like quote unquote like just wants to lose fat, what they're doing in the gym and their performance in the gym matters, but to such a small extent that it's like you're more thinking about stimulating muscle to grow as opposed to performance in any way. Um, so I like it as a coach because it's much more of a challenge. But as someone actually doing it, it is much harder. And as soon as I stopped rowing and I realized that it didn't really matter if I was 2 seconds slower at my 5K on an erg,
Mm.
like to make the boat and rowing, I was like, this is easy, you know? So in some ways I quite liked it because I was like, it started really hard. That was the first kind of like quote unquote
Yeah.
diet I ever did. And then as soon as I finished performance sport, it was like I was like, oh, this is actually quite easy, and I didn't really need to overthink any of it. And if I lift slightly lighter in the gym, you know, miss a few reps, like, it doesn't matter at all. What I will say is that general advice, and you'll see this on social media about like meal timing doesn't matter and macronutrients don't matter, and it doesn't really matter what time of day you're training, and when you do your strength work versus your cardio, okay, all that does matter for you actually, and it's quite specific and it's quite individual, and obviously this is why you're working with Kate, because this is why she programs specifically for you. And I was thinking about this the other day because I was listening to a podcast on finance actually, which is like is a much newer area to me. And the example that was given was that everybody argues about what's the right and wrong investment, and it can seem really confusing until you realize they're just arguing about different people in different situations. So it's
Yeah.
like this person's 20 years old and is investing in something that they don't want to take out until they're 50 and they retire, or like 60 and they retire, versus this person's 30 years old and they're saving to buy a house next year. Like what's right for them is completely different. Or this person's got 3 kids and they're all dependent on them, versus this person's single, has no dependents, and has a long time to invest. Like what you're going to tell that person is significantly different. It's quite similar when it comes to what's specifically right for you with your diet and exercise, which is one of the reasons it seems so confusing on social media, because you can literally, and people do this to me, they'll often send me a post that, I don't know, my business partner Amelia's done, and be like, didn't you say the exact opposite thing yesterday? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And Amelia works with people who are really struggling with their relationship with food and binge eating, and I work with women who want to lose fat.
Yeah.
And they're different demographics, and the right message for those people are significantly different. So that's just more like a broad thing of like, when you're looking at social media, when you're taking in other people's content, like mine might contradict Kate's, because I might be like, stop worrying about meal timing, it doesn't matter. Well, if you're an endurance athlete,
Do.
yeah, like it does matter if you're trying to fuel your performance. But my clients, not to the same extent as yours.
Yeah, fair. And I think the difficult thing is lots of people start endurance sports and running and things like that as a way to lose weight. And actually, it just ramps up hunger. And especially if you're then if you're not eating the right things around it, you're then sort of digging yourself into a hole hunger-wise. So I think it's all, I mean, I think it's all about timing, and what you eat is so much more important. Like when I wasn't training, and I was just maintaining weight, it's like, oh, I can eat anything within reason, because I don't have to worry about muscle maintenance and carbohydrate and things like that. And I was like, oh, so I did just eat pain au chocolat, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, and then I think actually coming off the other side of it, sometimes, people will train for a marathon or something, or I've had people that were like ex-competitive swimmers, and when they kind of quote unquote retire, or retire from like training at that level, it's not like overnight your hunger levels just re-regulate. It's still, your body kind of still expects to get 3,000 calories in, but you're not doing 20K runs numerous times a week, or spending hours and hours swimming, and thus like that period can be quite hard. And this again is so individual, and the research behind it is so individual as well. It's not as simple as, if I start training for a marathon, my hunger levels will ramp up. Some people actually doesn't really impact their hunger levels. Some people find that even a small increase in activity massively impacts their hunger levels. Some people find that exercise actually reduces their hunger. And more broadly from the research, what you see on this is, and it's probably not that relevant to your specific demographic, but if you are obese and you start exercising more, what tends to happen is your hunger levels actually technically reduce and normalize. If you're lean and you start exercising more, hunger levels ramp up and you end up gaining weight. Normally, right? Like this is again like generalization. There'll be like outliers within that. And it kind of shows that the best place to sit is being like relatively active in a healthy body weight is where your hunger levels are going to be most aligned to what you actually need. But then you do have to consider what it is that you're eating. Another thing that I see a lot of with more like amateur marathon runners is eating a ton of like gels or Lucozade, because they see that I don't know, Mo Farah's doing that, and they think, oh, if I'm going for a 5K, I need to fuel myself. And actually, they've consumed more calories in the 5K than they expended. And then they finish it and think, well, I've run a 5K, I should eat something. And then they end up eating more. So sometimes there's an element of genuine hunger, and then there's like kind of psychological hunger of, well, I must have burnt a lot of calories doing that. I should eat something, or you're allowing yourself to eat a little bit more and you're overshooting.
And that's a really easy trap to fall into as well. I think people are, because there's so much talk, or there historically has been so much talk about like earning your calories, and then people start doing endurance sport and they're like, I have earned my calories. And it's so easy. Like, I have a pizza night on a Friday because I'm like, well, I'm going to burn like 6,000 calories tomorrow. But that's not earning, that's fueling. But I think lots of people the next day are always like, well, yesterday I did this. And it's like, okay, but now you're way overeating because of it. So, well, you're not in a deficit anymore.
And I think people don't realize like how much exercise you actually do. You know, like when you are doing like a 20K run or something, like that is a lot. Whereas doing a 5K is very different. And you
Yeah.
probably don't really need to fuel for that. Like if I had a fat loss client and they were like, oh, you know, on a Saturday I do a 5K, I probably wouldn't even change their calories. I'd be like, cool, we might be in a slightly bigger deficit that day, but it's not going to make a big difference.
Yeah. And
Whereas if they were doing a 20K race or a 20K like run or something, I'd be like, right, we need to increase calories.
and then from that, what would you, so obviously there are people who you have to have the calories while you're training and then you're recovering after. So lots of stuff now is coming out saying that the calories that you have whilst you're training, so like the intra-sport calories, don't count towards your daily total, I guess. But then surely that like all your calories count towards your daily total in real life. So how like
Yeah, I don't think I would agree with that unless they're saying like they don't count because you're equating, I don't know, you're going to expend about X amount of calories and that's the calories you're going to consume during your workout or during your run or during your swim or bike or whatever. Fine, but like at the end of the day, it's total calorie expenditure versus total calorie intake. Doesn't really matter when
yeah.
you ate those calories. Might matter for your performance, but in terms of your body fat levels at the end of the day, it still comes back to the simplicity of calories in versus calories out.
So I'm guessing those people are talking about if you're also taking off your calorie burn from the day, if you're taking off all the calories from your exercise and then just working around it. But it's something that really I've seen it a few times and I've been like, well, how does that work? Because
Yeah,
calories.
I'd quite like to know that
Yeah.
explanation. I think what you'll find really interesting about your chat with Andrew Jones, um, is because I had him on EIQ and he's incredible. And one thing I was like trying to delve into with him was how simple the way that the best athletes in the world train. And I was like, so do they have like sports science? Are they getting their blood work done all the time? Are they having intra-workout nutrition? Like what are they doing differently? He's like, no, they wake up, they run, they don't eat beforehand because it's too hot. Well, no, because they want to run first because then it gets too hot in the day. And he's like, it's not time to like faff around and have breakfast, so they just get up, they run faster. And I was like, oh, is that because like they
Mhm.
think there might be increased mitochondrial biogenesis if they run fasted, and you should do some training fasted for better endurance adaptations? He's like, no, they
Just
run it because it's like because it's too hot to run later, and because then they come home and have breakfast, and you're like, okay. And then you have people in the UK like that are just trying to optimize every tiny, tiny little thing. And
mm,
sometimes I'm like, you stress yourself out so much doing that.
yeah. And it's so like my favorite saying is like don't major in the minors. Like just worry about the main things first. Are you getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep or like 6 to 8 for some people, or like 8 to 10 for me. You know, all of those things first, and then it's something to worry about whether you're having the right kind of collagen.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, earn it, you know. And I'm not afraid to kind of call people out a little bit on like, you've not earned caring about nutrient timing because you're not even sleeping, you're not even training consistently, you know, you're not even sticking to a calorie target. We don't need to worry about any of that. Like, we literally just need to think about this. Don't even think about supplements. Like, you haven't earned supplements because you've not done the basic stuff that's going to get you the most results. And then at that point, you probably won't even need to think about that because you already got the results that you want,
Yeah,
and not
that's
spend a ton of money on shitty supplements that do nothing.
actually talking about supplements. That's handy. What a great segue.
It's okay.
Does collagen help with muscles? And does it actually work for postmenopausal women?
So if you're taking collagen, and this is something like comes up all the time, obviously, because it's so well marketed and it's pushed towards everyone, especially menopausal women. Normally, the question I'll ask people is, "Why are you taking it?" And they're like, "I don't know." Because like, what benefit are you looking to get from this? Because if you're saying, "Oh, I'm taking it because I think there might be a tiny bit of research to show that it increases skin elasticity," or "I'm taking it because I have osteoarthritis and there might be a little bit of research to show that it's beneficial for that," then I'm like, okay, yeah, keep taking it. If they're like, "Oh, I just saw like loads of influencers were taking it and it's meant to be quote unquote good for menopause," good for what? Like, specifically what? Like, what are they claiming here? Because you can't dispute a claim that's not been made. Sometimes I find that quite hard. Like, what do you think of this? And it's like, well, I can't really say anything because I don't really know what they're trying to say with it. You know, they've not made a specific claim, thus I can't disprove something that's not. If they're
Yeah,
just like, it's good to take, then I'm like,
it's not bad to take.
yeah. Um, but I think it's a waste of money for the vast majority of people, apart from like those two situations I just described. Yeah. You would be way better taking whey protein because whey protein has a full amino acid spectrum, collagen doesn't. So in terms of building muscle, whey protein is going to have a much bigger impact on your ability to build muscle.
Is there much research on collagen and tendon/ligament?
Um, I think from when I last looked at it, there's more on gelatin.
Oh, interesting. So just
Yeah,
read those.
yeah,
Perfect.
maybe. I don't know what the dose. I
Marshmallows.
can't remember the exact dosages. But it was a specific study by, I can't remember who now, but he was in Dundee for a while, so I'd like met him a few times. Really cool researcher. But anyway, it was quite specific and it was done on tendon rehab. But the protocol was really specific as well. It was like you needed to do these plyo exercises numerous times a day and then take gelatin straight afterwards. But there is some stuff on collagen around injury. Um, and on a practical, like it kind of makes sense if someone's explaining it. It's like, oh, your ligaments and your tendons are made of this stuff, so if you take more of it, it's a good thing. But that doesn't always translate. It's not quite that simple, you know.
It's how you break down and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be completely broken down first. Yeah.
Second one with that's a little bit. Oh, actually, there's a few about supplements. Protein powder with. I'm gonna mess this up. Shilajit. Is that how you say it? And
Yeah,
monocrotaline.
I didn't have time to look this up because I never. Is that a mushroom?
I don't know. But it's marketed by the woman.
Oh,
Um,
wait, what is it?
it's marketed.
Um,
You've called her out before, I'm pretty sure.
oh, it's from the Himalayan rocks.
What's her name?
Oh God, there's a lot of words here.
And they're pill powders. Yeah, so there's a lot like there's a lot of claims. But it's Davinia Taylor. That's it.
Oh yes,
Hmm.
the well researched Hollyoaks actress.
Very good at marketing.
Great at marketing, but like, what? Yeah. it does shock me a little bit that people are like, oh, do you know who will know her shit? The woman that's been on Hollyoaks and has no scientific background. Yeah. Um, no,
Maybe
all
scientist
of,
first.
huh?
Maybe she was a scientist first.
It turns out she wasn't. I did actually check that just in case. 'Cause I was like, hey, maybe she does have like a background in it. No. But yeah, very well marketed and no, the like most of this stuff is bullshit. She sells a lot of MCT oil as well. That Shilajit, whatever. I think it's just like an antioxidant. I don't think it does a lot. I've not seen any good research behind it. Um, what was
Yeah.
it? Protein with that?
So it's that protein powder with that and monocreatine. Does it actually work for performance and does it matter when you use them? So I think this is sort of two different questions. So protein powder and creatine. Let's chat about them because they are things that we do want. Um,
Yeah,
but
protein powder is mega useful just for getting in more protein, but it's not magic. Like you could get the protein in from other sources. It doesn't have to be protein powder. The reason that a lot of people use it is because it's really easy. I'll often suggest it to clients especially if like trying to think of your demographic. If you're, you know, over say 50 and you're trying to optimize your performance, you're trying to adapt to exercise, you are going to be in a state where you have like a slight change in your hormones, which makes it slightly harder to adapt to exercise and recover from exercise. Would it be more important to get your protein in after your workout? Yeah, 100%. So in fact, most of the research around that quote unquote anabolic window comes from one specific study that was done on elderly men that showed that if you have your protein shake within an hour after a workout compared to 6 hours afterwards, you get higher rates of protein synthesis. That's because most of them had anabolic resistance, right? So they do have a slightly shorter anabolic window. But then they just extrapolate that out to everyone. In like younger people, that doesn't actually happen. There doesn't really seem to be much benefit at all to having protein closer to your workout. But it still kind of makes sense to have it then. And most people just naturally are going to have protein within a couple of hours, either before or after their workout.
and creatine. So I've done I've gone over this before, but basically we like creatine. It's good for you. There's
Yeah, and there's not really a downside to taking it. Like it's relatively cheap. Now and again, I have clients that find they have like gastrointestinal distress taking it, or they feel like they get really dehydrated, but it's very rare. And
yeah.
I would just say if that's you, like take a smaller dose. Or, and this is the other thing, I'd recommend taking it. It's one of the most researched supplements we have, but it's not like that's the key difference for you. And anyone who's come to me and said it has been, I know, and I normally don't blow their, like, burst their bubble or whatever, but I'm like, it's working as a placebo for you because it doesn't make that much difference. Like, it gives you a little bit of an edge, and if you think it will, then it probably will as well. Like, the placebo effect is so strong, but it's not night and day. It's quite a small increase that people are getting. Like, when you look at blinded trials, where you'll have a control group that both groups think they're taking creatine, but only one group is, the performance benefit it isn't massive.
Mm. And like the thing with people coming to you and saying it is that they're probably working with you, so they've probably also made quite a few other changes in their life.
Yeah, the
But
likely is they're like sleeping better and they're training more and they feel like they've done this thing and taken this thing that's gonna, improve their performance. And they trust me and I've told them that it will, and thus it has, and if there's like one simple thing they can attribute it to, it's taking the creatine. And hey, I don't, it's cheap, it's easy to take, it probably is going to be beneficial. And there is some interesting research around brain health as you age as well. So I'm like, it's a good thing just to be taking. And look, it's already in your diet. It's just most people don't get anywhere near enough to maximize benefits.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Um, and so we touched a little bit there on like recovery. and especially recovery being harder as you get older. Any top tips on recovery? For we've been asked, conscious that I'm taking in general to recover, longer to recover. Any
So,
top tips?
in terms of top tips, I often make my sessions for peri or postmenopausal women shorter, but sometimes I will actually add sessions in. So they might be training more times per week, but shorter workouts. Honestly, it doesn't mean that you can't improve your performance. You just need to train a little bit smarter. And I think when you're younger, what you realize, and what I've realized from working with so many peri and postmenopausal women, and also myself when I reduce my own training volume, is most people are doing quite a lot of like what I would term like junk volume. Like you're doing more and it's not actually getting you any better results. And when you reduce that, you're able to recover better. So that's more important when you're younger. When you're older. When you're younger, you can sort of get away with the junk training, and it doesn't make that much difference. It's like it's probably not adding very much, but it's also not impacting your recovery to the extent that it's impacting your performance. So it doesn't matter. Whereas when you're a little bit older and recovery is reduced, you do have to be a little bit more careful, and you do have to kind of maybe reduce the volume a little bit, but keep the quality higher, and just make sure that you are nailing things like what are you doing outside your workouts? How are you reducing your stress? How are you actually prioritizing sleep? Because that's going to have a huge impact as well. It's not just, and you probably again got away with that when you were younger. You
Yeah.
just need to be a little bit tired.
And I think as well, sometimes when people start like triathlon training or anything that requires a higher volume of movement anyway and of sessions anyway, you can't get away with as much junk because your sessions have to be specific. You like to fit everything in a week or in 2 weeks. You've got to you have to cut out that junk because otherwise you're not going to recover from it. Like you don't have time in the week for one as well. Like to fit it if you want to do an extra like session that is sort of a junk session. It's like, well, you can do that, but it's probably going to impact the sessions that you are enjoying and that are making a big impact on your training. So that's probably what I'd.
The other point to make about this, because I think there's a lot of fear mongering around this, and the research isn't wrong, it's just not relevant to you. So one thing I talk to my clients a lot about, and one thing I like talk about just generally quite a lot, is being like, fuck average, right? And that's partly like a direct kind of dig or dismissal at some of the research around aging. And I'm thinking specifically around, like, you'll see graphs of this is what happens to your muscle mass as you age, and it's like reducing, right? What they're looking at is this is what happens on average to people as they age. And if you plotted over that, how much less active people are, it would all, it completely aligns with that. And one of my favorite images, I'm sure you've seen this and shared it numerous times, is that picture of the triathlon's legs at 70 or whatever,
Yeah.
sedentary person's legs at 60. And it's like, there's so much muscle mass here at 70. Why? He's older, but he fucking moves, like he still trains. And there is a huge element, I know it's simplistic, but like use it or lose it. Normally, the huge confounding variable with age is reduced activity. And this is what I say to my clients, because they're, oh, well, what happens if blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, that's irrelevant to you. You're resistance training 3 times a week. You're not average. You're not the average person, so you don't need to worry about that. Like, you don't need to look at those stats and think, oh my God, even the stats around menopause, it's like most women put on weight during the menopause. Okay, but are you most women? Are you behaving like the fact that you're here listening to this, however you find this recording, I can guarantee you're not average. Like,
Yeah. And that's like I think what God, my brain just went blank. Sorry guys, haven't taken my creatine today. Um so I think the other thing about that though is like oh my God, where did that thought
we were
go?
talking about being
Literally
and like graphs of like muscle mass reduction.
oh my God, sorry. Um that's going to get cut out. I think the other thing with that is what other people tell you that is going to happen to you. So if people also say, "Oh, your knees are going to get bad if you're running, or you're not going to be able to keep that up," I think that fear, it automatically, like, you put it on yourself, and you're like, "Oh my God, my knees are going to get bad from running." Actually, they're not. You're okay. As long as you're resistance training as well, you're going to be fine. Their knees going to
It often comes from like a good place, but they're like, my knees got bad at that age, or that thing, I don't know, resistance training, I hurt my back doing that or something. And it's like, okay, someone's had a bad experience of it. But again, like that's not necessarily your experience. And the same is true, like back to what we were talking about at the start with diet. Someone might be like, well, I cut carbs and it was the best thing I ever did. And I lost, I don't know, 20 pounds and I kept it all off. Okay, that's great. But were you training for triathlon at the same time? No. Okay,
be.
well, maybe it's slightly different, And also, they started at 120 kilograms or something. It's like they had a huge amount of fat to lose. And yeah, it just might be very different for you. So most people mean it with like the best intentions of trying to help you, but just always kind of consider, okay, is that advice relevant to me?
Yeah, I think that's the really hard thing to do, especially now with social media. It's like, okay, what is relevant to me? Next question was, exercise really helps me to sleep. In the days before an event when I'm reducing my exercise and tapering, I'm not as tired, and then I struggle to sleep and don't wake up rested, which feels like a real conundrum. This is actually from Sally.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I don't know if I have great advice for this one.
Yes.
Aside from like a bit of a kind of sleep routine. Now, I'm actually someone, this is probably the worst advice ever, right? But to send myself to sleep, I'll just scroll on social media because I find social media so unbelievably boring. And I know that most people like that, they're like, no, need to have my phone off 3 hours before bed, can't look at screens, blah, blah, blah. As soon as I get up, like Instagram or something, I'm like, so bored. And I just fall asleep straight away. Um,
I
but
have the same with podcasts because I listen to podcasts and they send me back off. But I've just found that when I'm building up to something and I've like stopped exercising, I'm like, oh, I'm not really shattered anymore and I can't sleep. And that's when I really, really want to sleep. So I find it really tricky.
is it yeah, that is hard because you really don't want to do any kind of like extra movement apart from
No, that's, yeah.
getting more.
I think the only thing I've realized that kind of that non-activity kind of almost comes to a crescendo in like the 3 days before. So like 2 days before, I'll just have a terrible night's sleep so that hopefully the night before I'll actually have a better night's sleep. So, but it's, yeah, I don't know. I've just got to work out a way of managing it.
Is it falling asleep or staying asleep?
Probably staying asleep. Normally I fall asleep okay, and then I wake up then.
Because yeah, that's a shame. Because melatonin will help you fall asleep, but it just won't help you stay asleep. So it'd be pointless to take.
Right.
Is there any level of like anticipation of the event or anything like that?
Oh yeah, sure. So there's kind of a general excitement, I guess. I remember like when I did Ride London, kind of about 5 or 6 years ago, and I swear I only had 3-4 hours sleep that night because I was so excited. And it was fine. And like it's amazing what you can do on 3 or 4 hours sleep. But it's not ideal.
I'm glad that it's excitement rather than nerves. That's positive. And I think so. One of the things that I remember reading when I was before I did my last half is that the days before, so particularly the night before, if you get a good night's sleep the night before that, the actual night before doesn't matter so much. As long as you've had enough rest in the week in general, you're
Yeah.
probably okay. So I think what's important to remember, and because I think it's really easy when you're trying to get to sleep to start worrying about your sleep and be like, well, if I go to sleep now, I've only got this many hours, and if that makes it so much worse. Is actually just lying down at rest with your eyes closed is still rest for your brain.
Yeah.
Like trying to take all the stress out of it, because I used to get that when I worked night shifts, and like I'd go to bed in the morning and I'd be like, oh, if I go to sleep now, I've only got this many hours, and then that's what keeps you up. One of the nurses was like, just lie down with your eyes closed in the dark, and it does help. And eventually you will fall asleep, but it's often easier said than done, especially before an event, because your brain's running through it the whole time. But yeah, trying to.
Also, I think I just remember whenever I was competing, or even when you're going anywhere, like you wake up numerous times, whether it's that you're getting a flight in the morning and you wake up at 4 and then 5 and then 6 when you actually had to get up. I remember the same was true whenever I was like competing in anything, or you're staying in a hotel and you get there late, or you're traveling in the morning, or you're sharing with somebody, or it's like actually probably the worst night's
Yeah.
sleep the night before.
Mm.
And you think, wow, I specifically remember training for like, I don't know, it was one of our biggest races in the year for rowing. And we all slept on the floor of a clubhouse the night before, like just in sleeping bags. And I was like, what? And I mean, like, you row fine, right? You kind of just, like, that was kind of part of like the university rowing experience. But I was a bit like, what a waste of like time in some ways. Like, wow, you trained so hard. University, like, it was like a performance rowing program. They like paid a performance coach. We, had physios. It was like you treated like a proper like professional athlete. It cost a huge amount of money. And then it's like, and the night before, you'll be sleeping on the floor. You just think, wow.
You'll be having a sleepover like you would take.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good.
I mean,
Interesting.
it's fun.
Thank you.
So it could be worse, Sally. You're not sleeping on the floor. It's positive.
Hopefully not.
The
No.
other thing is, if you're traveling, because you are traveling for your event, if you can take a pillow, I always find if you've got a good
Oh
pillow,
yeah.
so much easier to sleep anywhere, which makes me realise suddenly that I'm old now.
Oh, you've got to bring a pillow with you.
Yeah, you don't have to be old to need a pillow.
It's important. I
Mm.
think they're important things. Um, okay, what other questions did we? Oh, you'll like this one, Emma.
All
How,
right.
how does she stay so ripped? I'm so jealous. How do I beat Emma?
Um, so I was thinking about this because I saw it, and I think the biggest thing is routine and making it as easy as possible. I kind of like to think of it as the way I live, or my body is a byproduct of the way I live my life. And then you focus on the way that you live your life, and you kind of forget about worrying about anything else. And I do really focus on like, okay, how do I optimize my day and my eating and my routine to feel my best? And how can I do that the vast majority of the time? Like, it's not every day, and not every day is exactly the same. And like everyone has days that aren't perfect, but my non-perfect days are probably significantly better than most people's, like average days. So I try and think about like, how can I make my average day align with the physique and life and how I want to feel outcome, and I focus on that instead. But I think if someone followed me around with a camera, they'd probably understand a little bit more. They'd be like, oh, okay, you've not given yourself that many opportunities to overeat or be inactive, or yeah, like you kind of, I think much more people need to think about setting up their environment. And as soon as I say that, I think people in their head think, well, I've got kids, so I need to have, certain foods in the house, or my partner eats this, or I've got to go to work, so I can, live in exactly the same way that you live. That's fine. Like, I actually think constraints are a good thing. But if your partner has loads of, I don't know, sweets that you normally want to eat, it's not saying don't have them in the house. It's like, can you put out the fruit on the table and then the sweets in the cupboard? That's fine. It's still like they're not. Sometimes I'll speak to clients and they're like, I just lack willpower. And when I talk to them about their home environment, I'm like, you have literally surrounded yourself with temptation. You don't lack willpower. I would be the same in that situation. And actually, the other day I went to see my parents, and when I got to theirs, I was so hungry because it was like 9 p.m. and I hadn't had dinner. And my dad was like, "Oh, I left you some spaghetti, right? It's just the measliest like pile of spaghetti, like almost nothing there." Anyway, so I was like, well, I'll have that, but then I'm gonna find something else to eat. And I was very much in the mindset of like, I want something really tasty. Like if I could have like a big bowl of like granola or something, I was like, that's what I want to have. Nothing in that house, I tell you. I had to have a tin of tuna and some like for some reason because no one's gluten free, so I don't know where these came from, but like gluten free pita bread, like that's what I had to have. But it did make me think like, wow, if you they don't overeat on much because there's not really anything tasty here. So if they wanted to have something tasty or they want to have chocolate, they want to have, then they'd go out to have it.
Mm.
And it's really so much to do with your environment. And in that instance, the reason I personally didn't overeat was because of the food availability, right? Was because of my environment. It wasn't because I didn't want to. Like if it had been there, I would have eaten it. It's just it wasn't there.
And I think as well, you have to make so many more choices then to get there. So to then eventually overeat, you have to make the choice to leave the house, go and buy something, and then like eventually get back and eat it. Like there's
Yeah, and at that point, I'm like, I'm tired, I'm hungry. I'm not going to go all the way to a shop. Also helps that I'm actually pretty sure all the shops were shut by then because everything shuts in Scotland, right? Like in London, it's a little bit different because I could easily just do a delivery,
Mm, yeah,
anything I want at my door, basically at any time of the night.
yeah.
But again, I'm such a cheapskate that that helps me. So I'm like, am I going to pay all this money for food that I don't need? No.
I'll have toast. Thank you.
Yeah.
And also, I think you're probably one of the only people who says, "Oh, I'm gonna have something really, really tasty, really nice," and then talks about a bowl of granola.
Sorry, a bowl of granola is so good.
Other people are thinking about chips. I mean, I'm not because I don't like chips, but
Well, my parents definitely wouldn't have chips. I don't even think we had chips as a kid. Or my dad would be like, "Oh, we've made chips," and I'd be like, "Dad, that's a potato." You have sliced in half a potato and you're calling it chips. Like that is not the same.
it's equivalent to them like when you used to go out to dinner and they'd be like, "Oh, there's dessert at home," and it was like the choc ices in the freezer.
Yeah, but they've been there for like a year, and then
Yeah.
the inside it doesn't even taste like ice cream anymore. It's like because it's been refrozen about 10 times from all the times that the freezer's defrosted.
Um. Okay. Best way. This is actually probably in the same vein. Best way to manage calories during time of the month and the hunger that surrounds it.
Yeah, this is hard, and again, sorry to be like a broken record, but very individual. I personally know that it will last about 3 days. I also know myself well enough to know that if I have a little bit of something, I'll just want more. Like during that time, for me, I want to overeat, and it's not because I'm hungry. Like it's just the cravings and the want to overeat is there no matter how much I eat. So I just sit with it. And it'll last 3 days. I'm just gonna sit with it. If anything, I kind of knuckle down a little bit, and I use it as a bit like a test of like, hey, you can feel these things. Like you can feel hunger and not act on it. Um, or for some people, actually just increasing their calories by like 200 and being like, have a little bit of chocolate, have that ice cream that you want. That really helps them. But for a lot of people, that kind of backfires because they're more like me and they're like, I didn't want,
Enough.
I didn't want a small slice of cake. I wanted to eat the whole cake. I have no interest in one slice of cake. And it's like, okay, well, if that's you, then just sit with it.
Yeah.
But if you're the kind of person that's like, no, I just wanted a bit, like actually an extra 300 calories really makes a big difference to me. Okay, great. And this is more just knowing yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
There is some evidence as well that for about 3 or 4 days before your cycle, and again, very individual. Some people might burn about an extra 25 calories. Some people research those burns up to an extra 200 calories. You might know this yourself. And by the way, I would assume that specifically for me, if I was only know my own body, but some weeks are like before my menstrual cycle, like I'll wake up like sweating and I'm clearly so much hotter like during the day and I'm like, oh, I'm always really hot. Sorry. And then other months, like I don't really seem to experience that. Now, the extra energy expenditure is going to come primarily from extra heat. Like you're normally generally a bit hotter before your menstrual cycle. If you don't experience that, then you're probably not burning that many extra calories. If you do, then you might be burning, maybe at the top end a couple of hundred extra calories. So you could claim that you could consume a bit more if you wanted to, but with all the inaccuracies of tracking and activity levels and just variations in calorie intake and calorie expenditure, it's not an exact science anyway, and I certainly wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't assume that you would be burning a certain amount more.
And then I think that's also the difficulty. So when you can track that and when you know it's coming, it's a bit easier to manage. You know why you're so hungry. Whereas I guess when people are perimenopausal and their hormones are all over the place and therefore their hunger is all over the place, that's a lot harder to manage.
And their weight,
Yes. Yeah,
and
yeah.
their mood. So normally if you've got like a consistent cycle and every month you're like, my body image is low, my mood is low, my weight's gone up a bit, I've got loads of cravings, then we kind of know what it is, right? Whereas when that could happen, and by the way, the fluctuations are so much bigger than your normal cycle. So not only is it happening, is it's happening kind of times 10 and at various times of the month, or maybe nothing for 6 weeks and then a really big fluctuation. You can't tell what it is. It's harder to be logical about it. I mean, it's hard enough to be logical with PMS, the mood, low body image, the weight's gone up, so you feel like nothing's working, you don't feel motivated to exercise, maybe you're in pain as well, you've got loads of cravings for food, you're massively hungry, prime time to give up.
Yeah.
So it is such an important thing to talk about, but like there isn't that much to do apart from like sit with it. But what can really help is talking to your coach about it, or like getting that kind of rational, even just writing it out, being like messaging your coach like, hey, week before my cycle, this is how I'm feeling, I really want to give up. And even just you logically writing it out helps, no matter what Kate says back. Like it's still just kind of like, yeah, I just think that makes a big difference.
Yeah. And I think also knowing that, especially if you're feeling like that, and then you look at your workout plan and you've got like a really long cycle or something really hard planned, like everything's flexible. We can figure out anything. If you're feeling rubbish, we're not going to make it worse. Like sometimes actually a nice easy run or like a nice easy workout actually makes things feel better. But we're not going to do something horrendous, really high intensity when you already feel like you've got no energy and when you already feel like you're, behind. We're not going to set you up for failure. We're going to set you up to be like, oh, actually, I feel way better than I thought I would. Um, but I think definitely when I've looked at a workout plan before in like the 3 days before my period and be like, if I do that, I'll probably die. The only outcome is that I will die. And it hasn't happened yet, but you never know.
Not like Kate to be dramatic.
All right, give it a rest. Any last questions?
Let me just see what was. Um, I think we covered some pretty good stuff, I know there was one on M&M, and I know you're going to send because I did a bit of a deep dive on a podcast.
Yeah. Oh, any other supplements that can help postmenopause with muscles, bones, and strength? I think we've probably gone through the two.
Yeah, I think honestly it's not that different than premenopause. Everything I would just say everything becomes slightly more important. So like make sure you're taking vitamin D, make sure you're taking creatine. There might even be some research to show that creatine reduces brain fog. Make sure you're eating enough protein. That becomes even more important. Make sure you're resistance training and optimizing recovery. Like actually it's kind of all the same things, but it's just the importance of them and the impact of them becomes heightened.
And I think, like you said, no one supplement is going to make you feel amazing. It's the habits that you do over time and the consistency of it that is going to keep you feeling good throughout your years, I guess. And my mum does none of them. So
Yeah, I know, same. It's so sad because and also I train one of my mums, like, they live in the same village and like they're the same age, and I'm like, she's so fit in comparison to you. Like, and it's not like she's physically any better or anything. I'm just like, but anyway, I'm the worst person to tell her. It has to be someone else.
Yeah. My mum pulled a hamstring at my hen do. So, and I was like, "You're gonna do some strength training now?"
No. It wouldn't make it worse, babe. Wouldn't want to make it worse. Good excuse not to, now.
Good
Now, to
point.
be fair, now and again, my mum will get into yoga, so I'm really happy with that. And then the amount of times I've shown her how to do banded exercises, and she's like, "Well, when are you going to show me?" And I'm like, "Mum, I show you every time I'm home. What are you talking about?"
Oh, okay, good. Good to know we have the same mum.
Yeah, shame.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I hope this was useful.
Any last words of wisdom? Anything that you found when you were competitively rowing? Anything anyone told you that stuck with you?
Okay, the word commit has always meant quite a lot to me, and this actually comes from my hurdling days. And I always, and there's probably like a part of a race that this happens to most people. And when I'm explaining it, maybe you can tell me if there's like a part of your race. But I only did 400 meters, right? But 400 meters when you're running fast, it's a very long way, I have to say. So there would always be a part, it would normally be around the back end, at about 300 meters, where I would either commit and run a really good race, or I'd kind of step back a little bit and like I'd be too scared to, because it starts to hurt then. You're like, wow, lactic is coming up. And so I'd always say to myself, I actually remember my coach would stand at that corner, and he has a really big beer belly as well, this big old Scottish man. He'd be like, "Commit!" And he'd shout at me that at the top corner, and that's when I'd run a good race. I'd like commit at that top corner. Now I'd be dead at the end, but I think you can often feel that. I don't know if you're like cycling or something, and it's like, are you going to go all in on this? Or are you just kind of cruising a little bit and telling yourself that you're a little bit more tired than you are, saving it for like a sprint finish, but really you should be kicking sooner?
I really like that, and I think also you only know almost it's almost at the end of the race, and you recover quite quickly, and you're like, I didn't, I could have gone harder, and I
Or it's like you're doing your final sprint finish and you've got too much and you
yeah,
could have caught the person in front of you, but actually you waited too long. They had the balls to go sooner and you didn't go soon enough.
yeah. And I think it's all about trusting yourself as well, like trusting the training and knowing that you've got it when you do, and not just being like, oh, I'm not that fast. I'm not like, just trust what you've done. Like we've set you up so well to do this. Get rid of that negative talk and commit. I really like that. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
And I noticed as well that do you know who Lindsay Sharp is? Probably not.
Mm.
She's an 800-meter runner. She used to run for GB, and she used to train at the same track as me. So we were in like the same, not quite the same training squad, but I trained with her sister. Anyway, she's really amazing 800-meter runner, and she ran at the Glasgow, was it 2014 Commonwealth Games or something? Anyway, whatever Glasgow last had the Commonwealth Games, that was like quite important Commonwealth Games for me, or I was interested in it because so many of my mates from athletics competed there, and that was like what everyone was training for. When I realized I was never going to make it, I was like, I'm going to quit athletics. I'm going to start rowing and do something else. But like a lot of my friends made it, and she did, and I think she was like one of the only kind of Scottish people that we had that was going to like win a medal. And on her hand at the start line, it said commit.
Oh,
And it's the same kind of principle. It's like she was obviously like just go for this. And I remember watching her and I had goosebumps watching because when you've seen someone like we grew up to like from the age of like 13 watching her run, and then it's like, wow, this is like the pinnacle of your career, and like you've shown up and you've actually fucking done it in front of your home crowd and everything, like unbelievable.
yeah, that's so cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can't, there's not a lot you can compare to that. It's just, yeah, nice. Must have been nice to see.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, it was quite like emotional to watch as well. I was like, oh my God. I
Yeah.
feel the same watching Ailish McColgan. Do you know her?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because like we trained at the same track for years and years, like in Dundee, like just like her mum was a coach there, and
didn't know that.
ran for the same teams, went to like, all around the UK racing together. Because we used to have this team of people, so we'd all get on a bus in Dundee and then like go down to Manchester, all race together. And now seeing like what she does now, I'm like, that's like so incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, like where it can go is just
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not actually, I don't want it to be me. I just feel like so, like, I just love, because I've seen where she's come from, how hard that she's worked, and how long it's been. And like, there's so many young athletes that do well, that then, drift off and do something else or get injured or just like don't have the same potential. I mean, with her, it was quite clear that she had like insane potential. But yeah, watching her from then to like where she is now, amazing.
and also I think there's there might have been 10 of her in the world, but one of them had the opportunity to commit to it and like the ability to, because it's a lifestyle. Like if you're running like that, that's your whole life.
Mm.
And it's like, well, she didn't get distracted. She didn't, she kept everything together and is now there. And it's, you know, there are things that will send you off course in any sense of life, with work, anything. And it's about whether you can bring yourself to the back to the track, I guess. Like,
Well, I don't like this story, but I always find it quite funny. It always just shows like how quick-witted my mum is as well. But I remember reading Paul Radcliffe's autobiography, and my mum was like, "Well, how are you finding it?" And I was like, "It's a bit boring." And she was like, "Why did you think it was going to be exciting? All she does is run." And I was like, "That's actually quite a good point. Like, you just need to be so focused,
yeah,
be at that level." Like, yeah, it's everything. That's why it's so encompassing. Is it's not just going and doing a workout. It's recovering outside of that. Like, if anything, it's more important what you're doing off the track than on the track. Yeah.
you're probably doing it twice a day. Like for people doing endurance, like you're training at least twice a day for most people. And when you're not doing that, you're probably asleep. Like that's your whole life. And it's like you've got to be okay with your life being like that. And it's like if you want to be a lifestyle athlete, unfortunately, like something's got to give somewhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is why I'm just very blessed that I wasn't actually that good.
oh, it's why I really enjoy what I do. And I did it to a high level. I do it to at a level that I'm like, yeah, this is great. I have a nice balance.
Yeah, like the thing is, you can be really, really good and, have other aspects of your life, or you can be like trying to be the best in the world. And if you're trying to be the best in the world, like you can't have a life outside of that. Like that's your life now.
Yeah. But how cool is that? That's still pretty amazing. I think there are people that are cut out for it and people that are like, no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you're, Ailish McColgan, who's like the genetic, like her dad was an Olympic athlete as well. Like she has the best genetics that you could possibly have, plus the way, I'm not saying it's genetics, it's not. Like it's hard work plus genetics, but like if I worked as hard as her, there's no way I'd be as fast as her. Like my legs are about half the size.
Her legs probably come up to my head, so
Yeah.
but yeah, I was just thinking about my genetics. Probably not the best, but there
Yeah.
we go.
You know what? That's the only thing holding me back, really. I would be, I would be just like Halish if I had the genetics.
I'll just give my dad a call and blame him. Because I'm 5'2". Alas. Well, thank you very much, Emma. Yeah, it's been lots of fun, as always.
Good, I've very much enjoyed this. And yeah, we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Sally, for staying.
Thanks, Sally.
Thanks, Emma. It's really interesting.
Oh, and good luck with your race.
Thank you.
I hope you
Thanks very
sleep.
much. Yes, so do I. Yeah.
Do you know what? I have heard people say that specifically my podcast is very good at putting them to sleep.
Okay. As long as you don't do any raucous music at the end, because that always wakes me
No,
up.
no, I don't have an intro, I don't have an outro. Don't do any
Perfect.
editing. And it's just quite a
I'll find
monotone,
it.
like it's a
Like that.
monotone voice.
Yeah.
Me talking about crap again and again. This girl.
Yeah, Kate's way too bubbly. It's kind of like, "Ooh."
All right.
I'll find yours.
I'll
All
send
right.
it to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a
Have a
lot.
lovely evening.
All right then, bye.